The song slipped out by accident, a thin, trembling melody rising from old piano keys that had not been touched in years, and in that instant the room seemed to stop breathing. Dust floated in the sunlight like frozen stars, the air grew heavy with memory, and three little girls standing in the doorway went completely still, as if the sound had reached into their chests and pressed pause on their hearts. Something ancient and familiar wrapped around them, something they had not heard since the night the world broke apart, and the single dad at the piano felt his hands shake as he realized the music had opened a door he never meant to touch. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when broken lives meet gentle hearts, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can find their way into the world. The man at the piano had never planned to become a father this way. His life before had been small and manageable, shaped by routines and solitude, by work that filled the hours and silence that filled the nights. When tragedy struck his family, it arrived without warning, taking his younger brother in a sudden accident, and leaving behind three identical girls barely old enough to understand what death meant. Their mother had disappeared years earlier into a haze of choices and distance, and overnight the responsibility fell into his arms like a fragile, breathing truth he could not set down. He became a single dad not because he felt ready or brave, but because love sometimes shows up as a quiet refusal to walk away. The triplets arrived at his small house with one suitcase between them and eyes too old for their faces. They moved like a single unit, mirrored expressions and synchronized steps, speaking little and watching everything. At night they slept pressed together on a mattress in the spare room, as if separating might make something else disappear. He learned quickly that parenting them was less about rules and more about patience, less about words and more about presence. He burned dinners, forgot school forms, and fell asleep sitting upright on the couch more times than he could count. But each morning he woke up and tried again, even when the weight of it all pressed down on his chest. What he did not know how to handle was the silence they carried. It was not an empty silence but a loaded one, thick with unspoken grief. Their late father had been a gentleman, the kind who hummed while doing dishes and made up silly songs while tying shoelaces. That hum had been a constant thread in their young lives, woven into mornings and car rides and bedtime rituals. When he died, the hum vanished, leaving behind an echo that the girls kept locked inside. They never mentioned it, never cried loudly, never asked questions about why. Grief settled into them like winter, quiet and enduring. The single dad tried everything he knew to make their world feel safe. He taped their drawings to the fridge, learned how to braid hair by watching late-night videos, and showed up to school events with mismatched socks and a heart full of worry. Sometimes he caught them watching him with an intensity that made his throat tighten, as if they were measuring whether he might disappear too. He wanted to promise them he would stay, that he was not going anywhere, but he knew promises were fragile things when life had already proven how easily they could be broken. The piano sat against the far wall of the living room, an old upright inherited with the house, its wood scarred and keys yellowed with age. It had not been played in years, not since his own childhood lessons faded into adult neglect. One evening, after the girls had gone to bed, exhaustion pulled him toward it. He lifted the lid and pressed a single key, then another, letting the sound fill the quiet space. Music had always been the one place where his feelings could exist without explanation, where mistakes became part of the melody instead of failures. His fingers stumbled at first, but muscle memory slowly returned, carrying him somewhere softer than the day he had just survived. Without thinking, he began to play a simple tune, one that surfaced from nowhere and everywhere at once. It was not a song he remembered learning, not one he could name, but it felt familiar, like something half-forgotten from another life. The notes wove together gently, repeating and circling, carrying a warmth that surprised him. He did not notice the bedroom door opening, or the small feet padding down the hallway, or the way three identical faces appeared in the doorway, eyes wide and unblinking. The moment the melody reached them, the girls froze. Their bodies recognized what their minds could barely grasp. This was the song. This was the hum their father used to make when he thought no one was listening, the tune that floated through their childhood like a secret code of love. It was not perfect, not polished, but it was unmistakable. Hearing it again felt like being pulled underwater and suddenly breaking the surface, lungs burning, heart racing. They did not cry or move or speak. They simply stood there, absorbing every note, afraid that if they breathed too hard it would disappear again. The single dad felt the shift in the room before he saw them. The air seemed to thicken, the notes vibrating with something heavier than sound. When he turned and saw the triplets standing there, faces pale and eyes shining, panic flickered through him. He worried he had crossed an invisible line, stirred a pain he had no right to touch. His hands hovered above the keys ready to stop, but something in their stillness held him in place. So he kept playing, letting the song finish the way it wanted to, gently, without rushing, like a hand smoothing a wrinkled blanket. In the days that followed, something began to change, slowly and almost imperceptibly. The girls started to hum while doing homework, soft and tentative at first, then with growing confidence. The sound wound its way through the house, filling corners that had long been empty. They began asking about music, about the piano, about songs their father used to like. Grief did not vanish, but it shifted, becoming something that could be shared instead of carried alone. The single dad listened more than he spoke, learning that healing did not mean fixing what was broken, but honoring what had been lost. Life was still hard. There were mornings when all three woke up sick at once, nights when nightmares sent them racing into his room, days when bills piled up and fear whispered that he was not enough. He doubted himself constantly, questioning whether love could really compensate for the ways he fell short. But then there were moments that felt like small miracles, like the first time they laughed together over a burned pancake, or the afternoon they surprised him by sitting beside the piano, listening intently as he practiced, their shoulders touching his arm as if anchoring themselves to the sound. The forgotten song became a bridge between past and present. He played it often, sometimes intentionally, sometimes letting it slip out when his thoughts drifted. Each time it carried less pain and more warmth, transforming from a reminder of loss into a thread of connection. The girls began to associate the melody not just with who they had lost, but with who had stayed. Music, he realized, was teaching them what words could not, that love could survive death, that memories could live in new hands. As the seasons changed, the house changed with them. Photos appeared on the walls, school schedules crowded the fridge, and the piano keys grew smoother under his fingers. The girls grew bolder, their personalities emerging like colors from behind a gray veil. One loved books, another ran everywhere she went. The third watched the world with quiet intensity. They were no longer just a unit of grief, but three distinct souls learning how to belong again. And through it all, the single dad discovered parts of himself he had never known existed, reservoirs of patience, courage, and tenderness he did not know he possessed. Near the end of one long evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the room gold, he played the song again, softer this time, letting the notes linger. The girls sat close by, heads leaning together, eyes closed. In that moment, the past and present overlapped without pain, without fear. It was not about replacing their father or erasing the hole he left behind. It was about weaving something new around that absence, something strong enough to hold them all. If this story has touched your heart, if it reminded you of someone you have lost, or someone who stayed when they did not have to, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe. Your engagement helps stories like this reach others who might need them more than you know. And just before we close, leave a comment below telling us one word that this story made you feel, so we can build a community around shared emotions and healing. The single dad did not become a hero in a dramatic way. He never stopped feeling afraid, never felt fully prepared, never stopped missing the life he once had. But he learned that love is sometimes as simple and as powerful as pressing a key, letting a melody rise, and trusting that even the most forgotten songs can find their way home again.